February 15th, 2011, 6:47 in the morning. The manager of a small armored depot in Coldwater Junction, Indiana, picks up the phone and tells a dispatcher he's found a robbed vault and a dead body inside it. He's calm, he's careful, and every word he says is true except the part that matters, because the man in that vault had already been dead for more than 11 hours, and the man on the phone is the one who put him there.
And that is exactly where we left you last week, staring at a locked vault with a body inside it that no robbery crew could have put there.
The victim is Garrett Pollard, 38 years old, night shift vault supervisor. Forensics proved he was killed somewhere else in the building, carried into the vault, and sealed inside from the outside, and a vault like that can only be locked from the outside with a manager's override key. Part 1 ended on one question. Who had the key? Welcome back to The Cold File. I'm Marcus Reed.
And I'm Dr. Christy Hart. We pick up this week with the one piece of footage that no one knew survived, and the name nobody asked about for 13 years.
But before we go forward, I want to go back to that call, because the more you know about this case, the worse it sounds. Listen to the start of it. 911, what's the address of your emergency? And here's Deckett.
Yeah, I'm at the Vantage Depot on County Road 40. The vault's been cut open, and there's a man in here. It's one of my guards. I think he's been here a while.
I think he's been here a while. Marcus, that's not a sentence a panicked person says.
No, it isn't.
You find a coworker dead on the floor, your brain goes, is he okay? Is he breathing? Get help. You don't do a time of death estimate. That's a man telling you what he already knows.
And he never asks for an ambulance. Listen for it. Across a 4-minute call, he never once asks whether Garrett might still be alive. He requests police. He requests a supervisor from the parent company. He does not request medical.
Because medical would be a lie too far. He knew there was nothing to save.
And here's the detail. The original investigators had in their hands and never used. There's a hum under that whole call. Low, mechanical, constant. In 24, forensic audio analysis matched it to the vault's climate control system running at idle.
Wait, the vault's system? Not the hallway?
Not the hallway. Deckett swore in a written statement that he looked at the body through the open vault door from out in the corridor and called from there. That hum says he was standing inside the vault when he dialed.
Why would he go in? You found a robbery, there's a dead man, why step into the one room you should never contaminate?
That's the question I sat with for a long time, and the answer, I think, is that he needed to look like the first man on a fresh scene, but he also needed to check his own staging. He went in to make sure the body was where he'd left it 11 hours earlier.
Quality control on a murder. That is ice cold.
Let me bring Garrett back into the room, though, because in all the mechanics of this thing, it's easy to lose him. Garrett Pollard grew up about 40 minutes from Coldwater Junction, worked the depot for 9 years, coached his nephew's Little League team on weekends, Saturday mornings, a thermos of coffee, the whole thing.
What was he like to work with? Because the thing that gets him killed is a personality trait, right?
It is. Every coworker statement uses the same word, meticulous. The man counted twice. He logged everything. He'd reconcile a cash discrepancy of $40 like it was $40,000.
Okay, so that's the thing I want to flag for people right away. The exact quality that made him good at the job, that careful double-check, write-it-down brain, is the quality that made him dangerous to someone. He didn't go looking for trouble, he just couldn't not notice it.
Couldn't let it go. He's separated from his wife at this point, Treva, living in a rental near the depot, and by all accounts, the job was the stable thing in his life. He took it seriously.
And the nephew, was Garrett close with that side of the family?
Very. His sister's boy. That Little League team folded the season after he died. Couldn't find another parent to take it on.
God, okay, so that's the man. Now tell me about the 18 months before, because part I set this up and I want everyone caught up the numbers.
The numbers. In June of 23, cold case investigators searched a personal storage unit Garrett had rented. Inside, among ordinary stuff, they find a standard issue Vantage maintenance log, spiral bound. First 61 pages, routine work entries, blue ballpoint, then a blank dividing page.
And after the divider?
After the divider, starting September of 2009, a hidden section written in grease pencil. 23 separate cash count discrepancies, each one dated, each one a figure. Adds up to roughly $800,000 over 18 months.
Grease pencil. Let's stay on that for a second because that's a choice. Why grease pencil?
Practically, it's what's on hand at a loading dock. They use it to mark crates, mark seals, but there's more to it than convenience.
There is. Grease pencil doesn't smear like ink if the page gets damp, and it photographs strangely. You have to tilt the page under light to read it clearly. He wasn't hiding it from himself. He was hiding it from anyone who flipped the book open casually, and he was making sure it would survive a cold storage unit. Marcus, that's a man building evidence. Quietly. For 18 months.
He was building a case.
He was building a case the way you would build a case, he just didn't have a badge.
And the last entry is dated February 12th, 2011, circled twice.
He dies on the 14th.
2 days later.
So whatever happens on the 12th, that's the trigger. That's the day the clock starts.
We now know, and we'll get to how we know, that on February 12th, Garrett went to his manager privately. Not to corporate, not to the police. To his direct supervisor. And he laid out 18 months of documented variances and basically said, explain this to me.
He gave the fox a heads up about the henhouse.
He did. And I want to be fair to Garrett because in hindsight, that reads as naive, but it isn't really. He's a company man. The chain of command is the manager. He's giving the institution a chance to do the right thing.
And that's the tragedy of the meticulous man. He trusted the process. He assumed everyone else played by the same rules he did.
So let me set the board for part 2 because the original investigation went a completely different direction. And to understand why this case stayed cold for 13 years, you have to understand what they were looking at instead.
This is the part that drives me up the wall, by the way. Go.
February 15th, 2011. Robbery crew cut through the perimeter fence, breached the vault door after midnight, took approximately $3.9 million in unprocessed retail cash. There's a body inside. The natural read, the obvious read, is that the robbery went wrong and the crew killed the guard.
Which is exactly what it was designed to look like.
Right. So the Cass County Sheriff's Department starts pulling the thread of who let those robbers in, and they land hard on a guard named Darnell Crutchfield.
Okay, tell me about Darnell, because part 1 I started leaning toward him, and I want to know if I was wrong.
Darnell Eugene Crutchfield, fellow overnight vault guard, worked beside Garrett for 3 years, and on paper, he is a beautiful suspect. He's carrying gambling debts north of $40,000 to 2 separate informal loan operations.
Informal meaning the kind of people who don't send a late notice.
The kind who collect in other ways. So there's pressure, real pressure. Then there's a piece of physical evidence. 3 days before the robbery, an interior motion sensor gets disabled via a maintenance log reset, and there's no work order for that reset.
No paperwork.
No paperwork. And the investigators believe Crutchfield did it. To blind a sensor the crew would have to pass.
And his alibi?
His alibi is where he buries himself. He tells investigators he was at his sister's house in Muncie all of Valentine's evening. Sister backs him up. But casino security footage surfaces, placing him at a poker room in Cincinnati at 11 o'clock that night. Cincinnati, which is nowhere near Muncie, and directly contradicts the story he and his sister told.
Oh, okay, see, that's the thing. That's a real lie. That's not a fuzzy memory. He constructed a false alibi and got a family member to sign on to it.
And here's where I'm going to put my cards on the table, Christy, the same as I did last week. I think Crutchfield is the key to this whole thing. I think he disabled that sensor. I think he brokered the crew's access for a cut. And I think when Garrett got in the way, Garrett the meticulous, Garrett who notices everything, the crew put him down. The casino lie is the loose thread. You pull it, the whole conspiracy comes apart.
And I'm going to push back the same way I did last week because I think you're reading the lie correctly and reading the murder wrong.
Make your case.
Okay. A robbery crew that kills a guard who surprises them, that violence is messy, it's reactive, it's panic. One person panics, somebody fires, it's over fast, and it's ugly, and it's all in one spot. That is not what we have here.
What do we have here?
We have a body that was killed in one part of the building and moved to another. We have a vault relocked from the outside afterward. And we have Marcus. This is the one I cannot get past, a postmortem gunshot. Garrett was killed by blunt force trauma to the back of the skull. He was already dead. And then somebody put a single round into his chest.
After he was dead.
After he was dead, a panicking robber does not do that. There's no operational reason to shoot a corpse. You don't waste a round, you don't add noise, you don't add a ballistic signature for nothing. That bullet isn't about killing him. It's about something psychological. That's a finality gesture. That's somebody asserting, this is done, this is mine, I decided this. That's personal. That is somebody who needed Garrett gone specifically and needed to feel that it was over.
You're profiling the killer off one bullet.
I'm profiling the killer off the staging, the move, the relock, and the bullet. The whole package says authority and premeditation. Somebody who knew the building, knew the vault, had the key, and planned this before Valentine's night ever happened. A robbery crew improvises. This was choreographed.
Here's where I'll give you ground, and then I'll take it back. The staging is real, the move is real. I'm not disputing the forensics, but authority and inside knowledge, that describes Crutchfield too. He's a guard, he knows the vault, he could get a key.
Could he, though, walk me through the key?
This is the piece we flagged in part 1, almost in passing, and I want to put it back on the table because it matters more than it first sounded. The Vantage main vault. A standard staff key only engages the lock from inside the vault chamber, right? You can secure yourself in, you can lock it behind you when you're working in there.
So a regular guard can lock it from the inside?
From the inside to lock that vault from the outside, door closed, you standing in the hallway, mechanism thrown, you need a manager's override key. That's a separate credential by design, so that no single guard can seal the vault from outside and walk away.
And Crutchfield's a guard. He doesn't have the override.
He's a guard. He does not, on paper, have the override.
Marcus, then how is Crutchfield your guy? Because whoever locked Garrett in that vault from the outside was holding a manager's key. That's not a thread. That's the whole rope.
Because, and this is my honest answer, I think he didn't have to lock it himself. I think in a conspiracy, somebody hands somebody a key, or the crew has the key. The whole point of an inside man is access. I'm not married to Crutchfield personally pulling that lever. I'm married to Crutchfield being the door.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair distinction. But you feel that, right? You feel the shape of what I'm saying. Every road in this case leads back to a manager's override key. And there are exactly how many people with that key?
On record, at that depot, two managers carried the override credential.
Two, and one of them?
One of them was on paternity leave in Cincinnati that whole week. Hospital visitor logs confirm it. He's at a maternity ward. The timeline's airtight. He's never seriously in this.
And the other one is the man who called 911.
The other one is Harlan Deckett.
Wait, go back. Go back a second. You said the vault can only be locked from the outside with a manager's override key. There are two override keys. One man is provably in a maternity ward in another state, so whoever put Garrett in that vault and sealed it had to be
Holding the only other override key in the building.
And that man spent 13 years as a witness, as the helpful guy, as the first one on scene. Marcus, he wasn't first on scene. He never left.
Now, slow down, because I want to be honest about where I actually was at this point in the real investigation and where I still was as we were preparing this. I heard everything you just said. The key logic is clean. I felt it. But I had a wall in front of me, and the wall was the badge system.
The badge alibi.
The facility ran an electronic badge access system. Every entry, every exit, logged with a timestamp. And that system showed Harlan Deckett badging out at 6:47 in the evening on February 14th.
6:47 in the evening.
6:47 in the evening, Garrett's revised time of death is 7 to 8:30. So if that badge record is real, Deckett is gone before the murder window even opens. He's home. He's got the cleanest alibi in the entire case, a digital, time-stamped, machine-generated record that says he wasn't there.
And that's why nobody ever asked him to account for himself.
That's exactly why. For 13 years, in every review, the badge log made Deckett the cooperative witness instead of the suspect. The machine vouched for him. And in my experience, investigators trust the machine. A lying sister you can crack. A timestamp feels like physics.
But you don't buy it.
I'm telling you where I was. The key logic says Deckett. The badge says impossible. And I cannot reconcile those two things with what's in front of me right now. So either your whole profile is wrong,
Or the machine is lying.
or the machine is lying. And here's the problem. That same evening, after the badge says Deckett went home, somebody pulled a backup hard drive out of that building before it was demolished in 22. Sat in an evidence locker, unreviewed, for 2 full years.
The parking lot camera.
The parking lot camera. And when a cold case investigator finally plugged that drive in, there was a single frame on it from February 14th that I genuinely was not ready for.
Marcus, what's on the frame?
Let me tell you exactly what's on it, because this is the moment the whole thing turns. A dark-colored Dodge Ram, parked at the loading dock entrance. Driver's side door hanging open, lot otherwise empty. One sodium lamp, orange light on wet asphalt, and the timestamp burned into the corner of that frame reads 2112, 9:12 at night.
9/12. February 14th.
February 14th. The same night, Garrett died. 2 hours and 25 minutes after the badge system swears Harlan Deckett drove home.
And the truck is a match?
Registered to Deckett. Dark Dodge Ram, his plate, his vehicle. Sitting at the loading dock with the door open at the exact hour the medical examiner's revised window says Garrett Pollard was being killed and moved.
Marcus, say it.
All right, I'm going to do the thing I tell young detectives is the hardest thing in this job. I was wrong. The badge log was the floor my whole theory stood on. Crutchfield as the door, the crew as the killers, Garrett surprising them. All of that only works if Deckett left at 6:47. If Deckett is sitting in that lot at 9:12, with the murder window wide open. Then he never went home. The badge is a lie, and I've been building a conspiracy around the wrong man for the entire back half of this case.
I'm not going to gloat.
You can gloat a little.
I'm not, because here's what's actually chilling, and you said it last week without quite hearing it. Investigators trust the machine. A lying sister you crack in an afternoon, but a timestamp feels like physics. And that is the genius of what this man did. He didn't fake an alibi a human being had to remember and repeat. He faked an alibi the building told for him. Every time. For 13 years. He never had to say a word.
And the thing that breaks him is dumb luck and a contractor's habit. When they demolished the Vantage building in 22, a demolition crew pulled hardware before the wrecking ball. Standard salvage. One of the things they pulled was a backup drive off the parking lot recorder.
Which he had no reason to think still existed.
None. The original investigation back in 2011 never grabbed the parking lot footage because, why would they? Their crime scene was the vault, inside. The exterior camera was pointed at a lot. By the time anyone cared, the building was rubble. He'd watched it come down. As far as Harlan Deckett knew, that night had no eyes on it.
Except a salvage guy threw a hard drive in a bin, and it sat in an evidence locker for 2 years before anybody asked what was on it.
Logged and unreviewed. 2 years.
That's the system failing in his favor, right up until the second it failed against him.
But I want to walk all the way back through the suspect board, because conceding on Crutchfield isn't the same as understanding why this case went cold. And to do that, we have to be fair to the people who got chewed up by it. Because Deckett wasn't the only person this investigation put through the ringer, he was just the only guilty one.
Let's do it. Who got hurt?
Start with Crutchfield, since I just buried my own theory of him. Here's what's true about Darnell Crutchfield. The debts were real, $40,000+ to people who don't do payment plans. And the casino lie was real. He was in Cincinnati at a poker table at 11 that night, not at his sister's in Muncie.
So why did he lie if he didn't do it?
Because the truth was humiliating and incriminating in a smaller way. He's a man drowning in gambling debt who spent Valentine's night at a poker room sinking deeper. He's a vault guard at an armored company. You think he wants his employer or a homicide detective knowing that?
Right, so he lies to hide the gambling, and the lie makes him look like he's hiding a murder. That's the oldest trap in the book. People lie about the embarrassing thing, and the police hear it as the lie about the terrible thing.
Happens constantly. And in this case, it was catastrophic because it confirmed exactly the story the investigation wanted to tell.
What about the sensor? The motion sensor disabled 3 days before, no work order. That's the piece that always bugged me, because that's not a lie, that's a physical act.
It is, and it's a fair question. And here's the honest answer. That reset was done through the same maintenance log system that Deckett, as manager, had full authority over. The original team assumed a guard did it covertly. But a manager doesn't need to do anything covertly. He can disable a sensor, and it just looks like maintenance.
So the very thing they hung on Crutchfield?
Is cleaner if Deckett did it. A guard sneaking a sensor offline has to hide it. A manager taking a sensor offline writes, "Sensor offline. Nobody blinks."
God, he's just using the building the whole time. The badge, the sensor, the override key. Every tool of his job is a murder weapon, and none of them leave a mark because they're all things he's supposed to touch.
That's the profile of this entire crime. He never reached for anything that wasn't already his to reach for. And in February of 2012, the Cass County prosecutor charges Crutchfield conspiracy to commit armed robbery. Here's how the local paper covered it.
Prosecutors say 29-year-old Darnell Crutchfield used his position as a Vantage Vault guard to grant an armed crew access to the depot, a robbery that ended in the death of supervisor Garrett Pollard. Crutchfield's attorney calls the case entirely circumstantial.
And his attorney was right.
His attorney was right. 18 months later, on appeal, the charges are dropped. Insufficient evidence. Because the entire case against Crutchfield depended on one assumption, that the robbery crew killed Garrett inside that vault.
And the second the time of death moves, that assumption is dead.
But that doesn't happen until 23. So for those 18 months, and honestly, for years after, Crutchfield is the face of this case. He loses his job. He loses his reputation in a town of 17,000 people where everybody knows.
In a town that small, charges dropped doesn't undo charged. He wore that the rest of his life.
And that's the red herring that cost the most. Not because Crutchfield was innocent of everything, the man had debts, the man lied, but because chasing him used up the investigation's clock and its funding. By the time the Crutchfield theory collapsed, the case had no momentum left, and Deckett had been sitting in the witness chair for 2 years.
Okay, who else got hurt? Because you said Crutchfield wasn't the only one.
Tereva, Garrett's estranged wife, Treva Almonte Pollard. They'd separated about 8 months before, contested divorce, fighting over a rental property in Kokomo and some shared accounts.
And there's a policy.
There's a policy. $350,000 term life, naming her sole beneficiary, plus disputed co-ownership of that Kokomo rental. Call it $140,000 more.
So on paper, 500,000 reasons and an active, ugly divorce. I'd look at her too. What's the alibi?
Valentine's dinner in Kokomo with 3 friends. All 3 confirm she was there.
But
But in 2013, one of those friends, woman named Blythe Orish, recants. Says Treva was gone from the table close to an hour, unexplained.
ooh, an hour, that's a real gap.
And for a while, it reopens her hard. A grieving widow, a divorce, a policy, and now a missing hour on the night her husband dies.
So how does she come back from that?
Cell tower records. Which, and this tells you everything about how starved this investigation was, they don't even pull until 2014. After the original team has already moved on, her phone pings Kokomo Towers all evening. Continuous. No trip to Coldwater Junction, which is a 40-minute drive each way.
So she physically cannot have done it. And the missing hour?
A long phone call to a new partner she hadn't disclosed yet because she's a separated woman in a small town who didn't want her business in a police file. She stepped away from the table to take a call from a man she was seeing.
So same shape as Crutchfield, she concealed the embarrassing true thing and the concealment read as guilt.
Exactly the same shape. And it cost her 3 years of being a suspect in her own husband's murder.
And let me say the profiler thing here, because it matters. The staging argues against her too, not just the cell towers. The body moved across the facility, the vault relocked from the outside, the override key. That is somebody with intimate operational control of that building. Treva doesn't have a badge. Treva doesn't have a key. Even if she'd been there, the crime itself doesn't fit a person who doesn't work inside those walls.
The crime keeps pointing at the building every single time.
The crime is wearing a Vantage uniform. We just spent 13 years staring at the wrong man inside it.
There's one more, and he's quick, but I want him in the record because he's the cleanest example of how a bad read on a text message can swallow weeks. Owen Stacked, Garrett's brother-in-law, Treva's older brother.
What's his motive?
He'd borrowed $22,000 from Garrett, informal loan, handshake, and he defaulted. And Garrett, meticulous Garrett,
Of course, Garrett kept records of the loan.
kept records and had started talking to a Kokomo attorney about a civil suit to recover it. So there's friction, and then there's a text. January 19th, 2011, Owen to Garrett. Quote, "You'll regret pushing this."
Ooh. Out of context, that's a threat.
Out of context, that's a threat. And that's exactly how the original team read it. Owen might have arranged the killing to wipe the debt and kill the lawsuit.
And in context?
In context, alongside the attorney correspondence, the full thought is, you'll regret pursuing this in court. It's a financial ultimatum. Don't sue me, you'll spend more than you recover. It'll wreck the family. Not, I'll hurt you, don't take me to court.
And his alibi?
Airtight. 3 ways. Work conference at the Doubletree in Columbus, Ohio, key card records, an employer sign-in sheet, and a colleague who shared the room. Checked in the 13th, didn't check out till the 16th.
So he's in another state with 3 independent receipts. Cleared by mid-2012.
Cleared by mid-2012, but those were weeks. Weeks on Owen, weeks more on Treva, 2 years on Crutchfield, in an underfunded county investigation. Every one of those weeks is oxygen the real case never got.
And there's a 4th name, isn't there? The one nobody ever charged.
Felix Rose Santana. And Santana's different, because he's not a wrong turn. He's a real thread the investigation never managed to pull tight. Convicted receiver of stolen goods, black market logistics broker, prior felony. He knew Garrett only glancingly, a mutual contact in the freight world.
So what puts him in this?
In October 2013, Santana gets arrested in Fort Wayne on an unrelated receiving charge. On him, a prepaid phone. And that phone shows contact with an unregistered burner. A device cell tower records later place near the Vantage facility on the night of February 14th.
Near the facility on the night?
On the night. And Santana himself has a clean alibi. He's at that Fort Wayne bar with a dozen witnesses. He's not the one cutting the fence, but his phone is talking to a device that's sitting in the dark outside that depot while Garrett dies.
So he's the switchboard. He's not in the building. He's not at the bar by accident. He's the guy connecting 2 parties who can never be allowed to meet.
That's exactly what he is, a broker. He sells access and information, he knows the cash processing schedule, he knows the layout, and he sells it to a crew for a flat fee and a percentage.
But where does he get the schedule and the layout? Marcus, a freight world broker, doesn't know when an armored depot bundles its unprocessed retail cash. Somebody on the inside has to feed him that.
Somebody on the inside has to feed him that. Hold that thought because it's the thread that eventually leads all the way home.
So why is Santana never charged in Garrett's murder?
Two reasons. One, in 2013, the case is still the Crutchfield case. The robbery casualty story, nobody's looking for a broker who served a manager because nobody suspects the manager. And two, Felix Santana dies of a stroke in 22,
Before the case breaks.
a year before it breaks. So the one man who could have laid out the entire chain of communication between Deckett and the crew, in living testimony, gone. Which means when the case finally does come together, it has to come together from the other end, from the crew.
And that's a problem because the crew has every reason in the world to say nothing.
Every reason. These are professionals. They did the job, they scattered, they kept their mouths shut for over a decade. People like that don't talk.
Unless something changes the math on silence.
Before we get there, I want to drop one more piece on the table because it's the kind of thing that should have screamed and instead just sat in a file. The insurance claim.
On the 3.9 million.
On the 3.9 million in cash, Vantage's parent company, Consolidated Transport and Security Group, eventually hands over the paperwork under subpoena in 24. And the incident report supporting that whole claim, the document that drives the police narrative and launches the insurance payout, was authored entirely by one person,
Let me guess.
Harlan Deckett. And he submitted it within 4 hours of his 911 call.
4 hours. Okay, note that, file that. I want to come back to the 4 hours.
We will. The man who finds the body writes the official account of the crime, and that account becomes the foundation under both the police investigation and a multi-million-dollar insurance claim. He authored reality on day one.
And nobody questioned it because the badge said he wasn't even there when it happened. The alibi doesn't just protect him from suspicion, it gives him the authority to be the narrator.
He's the witness, the manager, the first responder, and the author of the file. He's standing in every position of trust at once.
Okay, but we keep circling the badge. The parking lot frame proves he was there. It doesn't prove how the badge lied. And a defense attorney is going to stand up and say a grainy timestamp on a salvage drive could be wrong, the clock could be off. That's not my client's truck. How do you actually break the machine?
You go underneath it, and this is August 24. Indiana State Police bring in a digital forensic specialist named Orrin Taglish. And Taglish does the thing the original investigation never did, never even thought to do. He doesn't look at the badge report. He looks at the raw logs.
The difference being.
The badge report is the pretty screen, the human-readable list of who came and went and when. The raw logs are the machine's own scratch notes, hexadecimal records stored on a separate partition of the system that the software writes for itself and almost nobody ever opens.
And those two things didn't match.
Those two things did not match. The badge report, the screen everybody trusted for 13 years, said Deckett out at 6:47 p.m. The raw hexadecimal records, the machine's private memory, said Harlan Deckett badged in at 7:14 p.m. and badged out at 9:08 p.m.
7:14 to 9:08.
7:14 to 9:08 on February 14th.
Marcus, that doesn't just put him in the building. That brackets the entire murder window. Time of death is 7 to 8:30. He badges in at 7:14 and doesn't leave until 9:08. He is there for all of it. The killing, the move, the relock.
All of it. And the parking lot camera catches the tail end of it. The truck at 9:12, 4 minutes after the raw log says he badged out, the two records corroborate each other perfectly. The machine and the camera tell the exact same story.
So how did he change the screen but not the scratch notes?
A documented software vulnerability. The badge access system had a known, unpatched flaw that let management tier users retroactively overwrite the swipe timestamps in the displayed log. Management tier. Deckett was management.
So he had legitimate high-level access, and the system had a hole in it, and he climbed through the hole with his own credentials.
He edited the face of the record. What he either didn't know or didn't think anyone would ever dig for is that the system also kept a second raw copy down in the hexadecimal that he couldn't reach to edit. The pre-T-screen lead. The machine's own memory never did.
And for 13 years, nobody asked the machine its own private version, because the public version was so clean.
Nobody requested the raw partition. Not once in 13 years, until Taglish. The original team trusted the report on its face. And why wouldn't they? It's a timestamp. It feels like physics.
It feels like physics right up until you realize a person with the right password can reach in and rewrite physics. That is not a haunted building. That's a man with admin rights and a motive.
That's the whole case in one sentence. Every impossible thing here is a man with the right key, the right login, and a reason.
So now we can finally name the motive cleanly, can't we? Because we've been dancing around why a 22-year company manager murders the best guard he's got.
Now we can walk me through it the way you see it.
He was skimming roughly $800,000 over 3 years off the volume discrepancies in unprocessed retail cash, the deposits coming in from gas stations, grocery chains, all that loose, hard-to-reconcile money, big volume, fuzzy edges, the perfect place to bleed a little off the top and have it look like a counting error.
And the only person at that depot careful enough to catch a counting error that's actually a pattern.
Is the man who reconciles a $40 variance like it's $40,000? Garrett, the grease pencil ledger. 18 months, 23 entries, $800,000, and on February 12th, he carries it into Deckett's office and says, "Explain this to me."
And what does Deckett hear when Garrett says that?
He hears a federal audit. He hears the end of everything. Because that ledger isn't a suspicion, it's a record, dated, itemized, methodical. It's exactly detailed enough to trigger the kind of forensic accounting that ends with handcuffs. Garrett didn't bring him a question. Garrett brought him the instrument of his destruction and naively handed it over to give him a chance to come clean.
And Deckett doesn't panic.
No, that's what makes him so cold. A panicker improvises. Deckett had 2 days and he didn't spend them sweating. He'd already had a relationship with a broker, with a crew. This robbery wasn't conjured in 48 hours. He had a contingency, and Garrett's ledger just told him it was time to use it.
And that's the part that turns my stomach as an investigator, Christy. Because it reframes the whole timeline. The robbery wasn't a thing that happened to go wrong on the night Garrett died. The robbery was the plan. Garrett's murder got folded into a heist that was already in motion.
Say that again, because that's the reversal that changes everything we've talked about tonight.
Every theory in this case, mine included, for 2 episodes, assumed the murder was a byproduct of the robbery. The guard who got in the way, but it's inverted. The robbery is the byproduct. The robbery is the costume. Deckett needed Garrett dead, and he needed the ledger buried, and a $3.9 million armed heist is the loudest possible noise to bury an $800,000 accounting problem under.
He didn't kill a man during a robbery. He staged a robbery around a murder.
He staged a robbery around a murder, and he hired the crew months in advance to do it.
So the body's in the vault before the robbers ever arrive, because the robbers were never the killers. They were the smoke.
They were the smoke, which means that when that crew cut through the vault door at 2 in the morning and found a dead man already lying there in the dark,
They weren't surprised.
they were expecting him. They'd been told.
Marcus, told what exactly? Who tells a robbery crew there's going to be a corpse in the vault and to just step around it?
That's the question that hung over this entire case until March of 23. And the man who finally answered it was 3,000 miles away in a detention facility in Sonora, Mexico, dying of liver cancer.
One of the crew.
Rodrigo Castellanos, street name Bird, member of the original robbery crew, arrested down in Sonora on something unrelated, gets a terminal diagnosis, and one day he tells the facility he wants to talk to police in the United States about an old job in Indiana.
Why? After 13 years of silence, why open his mouth at the very end?
You're the profiler, you tell me.
Honestly, because silence stops paying. A professional keeps his mouth shut to protect a future, his freedom, his next job, his crew. Take the future away, hand him a terminal diagnosis, and the whole arithmetic flips. There's nothing left to protect. What's left is the thing he's been carrying, and a body in a vault that he was told to step over. That's the kind of thing a man wants off his chest before the end.
2 Indiana State Police detectives flew down, sat at his bedside with a recorder and a photo array, and Castellanos picked Harlan Deckett's face out of 6 photos without hesitating.
And what did he say about the night?
He described a meeting, January of 2011, a month before the murder. A truck stop on State Road 24, the one we showed earlier, snow blowing across the lot. Deckett meets the crew there in person. Hands Castellanos a canvas bank bag with $80,000 in it as a down payment.
In person. He didn't even insulate himself through Santana for that.
For the money and the instructions, he went himself. And Castellanos remembered the instructions almost word for word. The vault would be open to them, the cash would be bundled and ready, and then he said the part that closed this case. I want to play it the way the detectives recorded it. This is Castellanos recounting what Deckett told the crew at that truck stop.
He told us the door would be ready and the money would be stacked. And then he says there's going to be a man in there already. On the floor. Don't touch him. Don't check him. Don't stop. Just take the bags and go. We thought he meant somebody tied up. We didn't know till we were inside that the guy was already dead.
We didn't know till we were inside.
They thought they were being warned about a hostage, a guy zip-tied on the floor they were supposed to ignore. They cut through that vault door at 2 in the morning expecting a live man, and they found Garrett Pollard with 11 hours on him.
And they stepped around him and took the money because that was the job. God, they were props in Deckett's play, and they didn't even know the lead was already dead.
And that's the whole architecture of it, laid bare by a dying man. Harlan Deckett killed Garrett Pollard himself in the loading dock staging area around 7:15 on Valentine's evening. Blunt force trauma to the back of the skull. Then he fired one round into the chest of a man who was already gone. Then he used his manager's override key to carry the body into the main vault and seal it from the outside. He left at 9:08. And 6 hours later, a crew he'd hired a month earlier cut through that vault door and robbed it around the corpse, exactly as instructed.
He didn't kill a man during a robbery. He built a robbery to be the funeral.
He built a robbery to bury the ledger.
And now go back to the 4 hours. I told you I wanted to come back to the 4 hours.
Go.
He files the incident report supporting a $3.9 million insurance claim within 4 hours of his 911 call, before Garrett's family has even been notified that he's dead. Marcus, you do not write a multi-million-dollar claim narrative 4 hours after stumbling onto your murdered employee, unless
Unless you wrote it before you ever picked up the phone.
he had it ready. The shock, the discovery, the grief, that was the performance. The document was preloaded. That's a man executing a plan he finished drafting days earlier, while Garrett was still alive and still trusting the chain of command.
And that reframes the 911 call completely. Listen to it again now, knowing what we know.
Yeah, I'm at the Vantage Depot on County Road 40. The vault's been cut open and there's a man in here. It's one of my guards. I think he's been here a while.
I think he's been here a while. He knew exactly how long he'd been there. He put him there.
And the hum underneath it, the vault climate system, we said in part 1 it placed him inside the vault, contradicting his statement that he called from the hallway. Now you know why he was inside. He went back in that morning to stand over his own staging one last time and confirm the crew had done what they were told. Don't touch him. They didn't. Garrett was right where Deckett left him.
He went in to admire the set before he called the curtain. That is the coldest thing in this entire file.
And here's what I keep circling back to as somebody who spent 22 years in rooms with people like this. He went to the funeral. Harlan Deckett attended Garrett Pollard's memorial, sat 3 rows from the family. He gave 11 voluntary statements to investigators over 13 years. Every time the case twitched, he made himself available, helpful, cooperative.
And every one of those statements quietly pointed at Crutchfield.
Steered. Gently, consistently, for over a decade. He never had to frame anybody loudly. He just kept the investigators' eyes pointed at the guard with the gambling debts and the casino lie, and away from the manager with the override key.
That's the part that tells me this wasn't panic. This was character. A man who panics confesses in year 3. A man who sits 3 rows behind the widow of a person he beat to death and does it with a steady face year after year. That's somebody who experiences other people as obstacles and instruments. Garrett was an instrument that became an obstacle. The crew were instruments. Crutchfield was an instrument, a decoy he never even had to recruit because the man's own debts did the work.
And I have to say it again here because I owe it. I had it wrong. I spent 2 episodes with Crutchfield as my centerpiece. The debts were real, the lie was real, and I let a true lie about a poker game stand in for a murder. The whole time, the man I should have been looking at was the one calmly handing me a clean badge log and a finished incident report.
You followed the machine. Everybody followed the machine.
Everybody followed the machine. That's the lesson I'd carve over the door of every cold case unit in the country. A document is only as honest as the person who can edit it.
So how does it actually come together into an arrest? You've got a deathbed statement and a raw badge log. Walk me to the courtroom.
2 pillars, and they arrive within months of each other. March 23, Castellanos names Deckett and lays out the truck stop, meeting and the instructions. That's motive and conspiracy from inside the crew. Then, August 24, Taglich cracks the raw hexadecimal and destroys the badge alibi. That's opportunity. It puts Deckett physically in the building across the entire murder window.
And the parking lot frame ties them together.
The parking lot frame is the bridge. The raw log says he badged out at 9:08. The camera shows his truck at the dock at 9:12. 2 independent records, 1 machine and 1 lens, corroborating each other to within 4 minutes. Add the blood spatter proving the body was moved, the time of death revision, the grease pencil ledger for motive, and the insurance report he authored before the family was even notified.
That's not circumstantial anymore. That's a wall.
November 6th, 24. They arrest Harlan Deckett, murder in the first degree and criminal enterprise.
Did he ever crack? 13 years of that performance, did it ever come off?
No, and that's consistent with everything you profiled. He waived a jury, went to a bench trial in Cass County Circuit Court, and maintained his innocence to the end. No outburst, no confession, no tell. The same flat, institutional calm he had on that 911 call.
Of course he did. The persona was never a mask he could take off. For this kind of offender, the cooperative witness role isn't a disguise, it's how he actually moves through the world. He didn't break because there was nothing underneath to break.
September 25, convicted on both counts. 55 years without the possibility of parole. Harlan Deckett is 61 years old. That's a death sentence with extra steps.
And here's the bitter symmetry. It took a dying man to convict him, and the sentence guarantees he dies inside too.
Here's how the verdict landed locally.
A stunning conclusion to a case that sat cold for over a decade. 61-year-old Harlan Deckett, the depot manager once treated as a key witness, has been found guilty in the 2011 murder of vault supervisor Garrett Pollard. Prosecutors say Deckett staged an entire armed robbery to conceal that he had murdered his own employee.
Once treated as a key witness. There it is, the whole tragedy in 5 words.
That's the line that should haunt the people who worked this in 2011.
So let's do the system failure autopsy, because that's really what part 2 has been. Where did this go wrong institutionally? Because it's not one mistake, it's a chain.
It's a chain, and every link is a thing that looked reasonable in the moment. 1, the original autopsy, the medical examiner put time of death in the robbery window, midnight to 4, but the data to revise it was sitting right there in the original report.
The gastric and the vitreous numbers.
Gastric emptying, vitreous potassium, both recorded in 2011. Nobody interpreted them against the robbery timeline because everyone already knew it was a robbery. The conclusion shaped how they read the evidence instead of the evidence shaping the conclusion.
That's the cognitive trap right there. They decided what crime it was, and then the science got read to fit.
Link 2. Nobody pulled the parking lot footage in 2011. The crime scene was inside the vault, so the exterior camera felt irrelevant. Link 3. Nobody requested the raw badge partition, ever, for 13 years, because the report on its face was clean and machine-generated.
And link 4 is the human one. The badge alibi let Deckett be the narrator. He wrote the incident report, he gave the statements, he steered the eyes. The system handed the author's pen to the murderer because a timestamp said he wasn't in the building.
And link 5, funding. 2 years and the bulk of the budget went into the Crutchfield prosecution. By the time it collapsed on appeal, the investigation had no oxygen left. A small county sheriff's department only gets so many swings.
So no single villain in the system. Just a series of reasonable assumptions, each one resting on the one before it, all of them resting on the very first one, that this was a robbery.
Pull that bottom assumption out the way the time of death revision finally did in 23, and the whole stack falls. But for 13 years, nobody pulled it, because the man who built the stack was sitting in the witness chair making sure of it.
Can we end on Garrett, though, not on Deckett? Because Deckett got 13 years of being believed, and Garrett got buried as a footnote in somebody else's heist.
We should. Here's what I want people to hold on to. Garrett Pollard solved this crime. In 2009, he saw the pattern. He documented it for 18 months in grease pencil, dated itemized $800,000. He built the case that ultimately established the motive that convicted his own killer.
He just didn't live to hand it to the right person.
He handed it to the wrong person. He carried it into Harlan Deckett's office on February 12th and trusted the chain of command to do the right thing. And that trust is the thing that killed him. But that same ledger, recovered from a storage unit 14 years later, is part of what put Deckett away.
So the meticulous habit that made him dangerous is the same habit that reached out of a cardboard box and finished the job. He notarized his own murder investigation 18 months before it happened.
It was a good investigator who happened to wear a guard's uniform instead of a badge. And the tragedy is the people who did wear the badge spent 13 years looking everywhere except where Garrett had already pointed.
The building's gone now, isn't it?
Demolished in 22. There's a concrete pad and a chain link fence where the depot stood. Harlan Deckett watched it come down, thinking it took the last evidence with it.
But a salvage crew threw a hard drive in a bin, and a dying man across a border decided he was done carrying it.
2 things he couldn't control. After 13 years of controlling everything, the badge, the report, the funeral, the narrative, it came down to a contractor's habit and a man's conscience at the very end of his life. Garrett Wynn Pollard, 38 years old, case closed.
He counted twice his whole life. And in the end, the count is what convicted the man who killed him.
13 years cold, and it was a guard, a salvage bin, and a deathbed that finally closed it. Take us out, Christy.
Next week, we open one where the warning was right there in the file the whole time, written down, filed, and walked past by everyone who should have caught it. I keep coming back to how loud some signals are once you already know the ending. Follow the show so it reaches you when it drops, and we'll sit with that one together.